afternoon. I'm Jamila Bay, the web content manager for the Washington Informer.
I'm James Wright, a staff reporter covering what's happening in all 8 wards. We're filling in for our publisher and Win TV host, Denise Rolock Barnes, because of circumstances beyond her control. She will not be able to do the show. Now, there's a chance that she may just slip in, and she has that right to do that, and we are looking forward to it. But Jamila and I will take the lead. Before we move on, we've had a chance to pick up the paper, the Washington Informer. Yes. If you don't pick it up yet, you can read it online at www.washingtoninformer.com. Please take a moment to share this broadcast. If you're watching on Facebook, that's share. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And, it is a YouTube channel that is really growing in popularity, which is Washington Informer TV. If you have an idea for Win TV, send an email to us at news@washingtoninformer.com.
Let's talk very briefly about the news. A lot of happenings are going on. Inflation, the Presidential Medal of Freedom award ceremonies happened just yesterday. Brittany Griner wrote a letter to the vice president, the nation indeed, and her wife. The breaking story this morning, however, is that the former prime minister of Japan, was shot and killed. He died after being shot while delivering a speech. Shinzo Abe was the longest serving prime minister in Japan for a generation. He defined politics, and the world is reeling. Indeed, gun violence is something that we Americans are far more accustomed to. The relatively safe Japanese nation has not seen the level of violence that Americans are unfortunately far too accustomed to. The world mourns and the world reels, is stunned. President Biden gave a statement that he is outraged and deeply saddened over the Abe killing. Brittany Griner, Olympian, American WNBA basketballer, playing ball in Russia because women players do not get anything near what the male players in this country do, was over in Russia. Of course, has been detained since early February for having a vape cartridge allegedly with a cannabis insert. She pleaded guilty just this past Thursday, yesterday indeed, in a Russian court to drug trafficking. However, despite the fact that she could face up to 10 years in a Russian prison, she did make the request that she have more time to present a proper case before the court. Now, the U.S. State Department, the White House, and a number of other organizations here in the States have made it very clear that this is considered an unjust detention and likely has something to do with the fact that Brittany Griner, who is married to a woman, is a lesbian woman, and lesbians are considered lesser people in Russia. So that's a quick wrap up of what's been going on in the news around the globe. Now let's talk very briefly about, let's watch rather the week's news recap by our broadcast reporter, Curtis Knowles.
This is Win TV News, bringing you the news that matters. An Illinois man who police say for weeks planned the mass shooting on a July 4th parade has been charged with 7 counts of first-degree murder, officials said on Tuesday evening. Robert E. Cremo III, 21, will be charged with additional counts in the shooting spree in Highland Park that killed 7 and injured dozens of others on Monday. Records show that Cremo purchased 4 weapons in 2020, including an AR-15 style weapon used in Monday's attacks, a Caltech Sub 2000, a Remington 700 rifle, and a shotgun. He also in 2021 bought a Glock pistol. Cremo made the confession in a voluntary statement after being reminded of his right to remain silent. And if convicted of murder, Cremo will receive a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Sherelle Grinner, the wife of imprisoned WNBA star Brittany Griner, has expressed frustration that the family has not heard from the White House, when on Wednesday, President Biden and Vice President Harris called her. The White House said on Wednesday that Biden called Sherelle Grinner to, quote, reassure her that he is working to secure Brittany's release as soon as possible. In a July 4th letter, Brittany Griner pleaded with Biden to help free her and others held in Russia. She said, quote, as I sit here in a Russian prison, alone with my thoughts and without the protection of my wife, family, and friends, I'm terrified I might be here forever. Griner has been held in Russia since her February arrest at a Moscow airport after authorities allegedly found cannabis oil in her luggage. And if convicted, Griner faces up to 10 years in prison. DC's minimum wage will increase Friday from $15.50 to $16.10 per hour for non-tipped employees and to $5.35 for tipped employees, according to Mayor Bowser. The mayor made the announcement in compliance with the Fair Shot Minimum Wage Amendment of 2016. The latest increase occurred because of the city's minimum wage is tied to the Consumer Price Index as mandated by the Fair Shot Amendment. Unique Morris Hughes, director of the city's Department of Employment Services, said that the Office of Wage Hour Compliance will work to ensure businesses comply with the pay increase. The Prince George's County Council voted 10-1 on Tuesday to implement a police accountability board in order to provide a more transparent process for reviewing alleged police misconduct. Duties of the 11-member board include holding quarterly meetings with law enforcement leaders, reviewing disciplinary outcomes from complaints filed by residents and officers within a county or municipal, and submitting an annual report to the county executive and council. Councilmember Jonathan Medlock of District Heights said, quote, this is a fresh bill. It is not perfect, but it's something that will lead us in the right direction.
Thanks, Curtis, for that outstanding report. Today, our guests are Ward 5 Councilmember Kenyon McDuffie, Frank Malone, the founder and CEO of 100 Fathers Incorporated, and an outstanding Omega man. Since July is Fibroid Awareness Month, we will be talking to Kiera Barrows, Director of Communications for the White Dress Project, to find out what that's all about. Finally, we'll hear from Kevin Hart, the founder, not the comedian. Our guest is into some serious stuff with storefronts for students, and he'll tell us about his summer youth employment program.
Now, before we bring on our first guest, Councilman Kenyon McDuffie, let's watch a video broadcast by reporter Samantha Anderson.
Incidents of gun violence have been increasing in the district this year. According to NPD's District Crime Data at a Glance, city homicides have increased by 14% compared to 2021, and violent crime has increased by 9%. These data points, of course, representing people, families, and lives lost or forever changed. District government and local anti-gun violence organizations say they are working to reduce these trends. According to its website, Cure the Streets, the OAG's Violence Interruption Program works with local community groups to find the root causes of crimes by providing conflict resolution and mediation to individuals, saying that gun violence should be treated as a public health concern. Research from the DC Policy Center's Proximity to Homicide Exposure in 2021 publication shows just how much gun violence can impact the mental health of Washingtonians, particularly children living in areas with repeated crime exposure. Yesham Sayen is the executive director of the DC Policy Center and spoke more about the data and research.
We asked the question, if you stand anywhere in DC, within half a mile of you, how many homicides happened in 2021? So we use data from 21. Turns out that 80% of the district's population was within half a mile of a homicide in 2021. And half of these folks were within half a mile of 5 homicides. That's the median number. We have some neighborhoods where none of this happens, and we have some neighborhoods where people were within half a mile of 37 homicides. I mean, can you imagine 37? That's like every other week. It's relentless. You know, kids, they don't forget the next day. Maybe it's somebody they know, maybe it's their classmate, maybe it's a family member, maybe it's somebody they know in the neighborhood. These are adverse childhood experiences, which means that kids carry them inside all their lives. They get physically ill, they have mental health problems. It is a health disparity. That's why it matters a lot.
Councilmember Trayon White's office says that they will be hosting several community engagement activities this summer called Resources to the Block in Ward 8 neighborhoods affected the most by gun violence. For the Washington Informer, I'm Samantha Jill Anderson.
Greetings, Council Member McDuffie. Welcome to Win TV.
Greetings to you as well, James. I am so excited to be joining you all today.
Thank you. As the former chairman of the Judiciary Committee, what are your thoughts about the city's homicide rate?
Well, not only as a former chair of the Council's Judiciary Committee, James, but I think about our homicide rate also as a father, as a husband, as a lifelong resident of the city who grew up in some of the toughest times in the district's history during the 1980s and 1990s. And so my heart weeps every single time I hear another killing has occurred in the District of Columbia. Too often, I've been called to the scenes of homicides and have contacted family members, and I had to speak with parents who have lost young kids to gun violence in the District of Columbia. Extending my condolences is simply not enough. Working on legislation has been one of my top priorities to address gun violence in the District of Columbia that we're seeing not only in Ward 5, where I represent on the council, but also in other wards across the District of Columbia. And while we have seen, I think, some tremendous improvements since my upbringing in the 1980s and 1990s, the district, like many cities across the country, is still experiencing, I think, an uptick in homicides that should outrage every resident across the District of Columbia, no matter whether you live in proximity to where the violence is occurring or not. So during my time as Judiciary Committee Chair, the council passed smart, data-driven criminal justice reform policies, and I was happy to lead the way in authoring some of the most transformative criminal justice reform policies that we've seen in the city's recent history. And I think the public safety strategies, James, have evolved in the district, but they're still in many ways in their infancy in terms of how it's being implemented. The work isn't finished, and that's why I'm running to serve on the District of Columbia Council as an at-large member to continue to champion thoughtful policies that will actually keep people safe in their communities, no matter their zip code.
We will talk about your race in a minute, but you played a key role in the NEAR Act becoming law. Is it working as you envisioned?
I think in many ways the NEAR Act is. We have to remember the NEAR Act was the most comprehensive criminal justice reform that was implemented in the district in decades. It has over 20 titles and subtitles. It ushered in a public health-based approach to crime prevention and intervention, and was a data-driven approach to violence. And so the law addresses crime in a long-term, sustainable way through cognitive and family-based therapy, through wraparound services such as counseling. It has a mentorship component. Workforce development was a heavy component of what we're trying to accomplish through the NEAR Act. The district is now prioritizing community policing. They're prioritizing the public health-based approach and utilizing crime data to help improve some of the police department's practices, but also partnering with behavioral health specialists to make sure that we're responding in a really thoughtful way, depending on what the call that comes through 911 entails. But the key phrase, though, James, is long-term. Certain components of the law have only recently begun to be implemented. And if we're going to be serious about preventing crime from taking place in the first instance, right? So it's crime prevention and intervention. We need to flood communities that have long been plagued by violence and are disproportionately impacted by violence. We need to flood those communities with resources and opportunities, but also making sure that we're holding those who commit crimes accountable.
There are some people who say, well, all you need to do is just hire more police officers, and that's the best way to combat gun violence. Do you agree with that?
I think it's an oversimplified way of looking at what is one of the most intractable issues that cities throughout history have faced, right? It is crime and violence. You can't simply say you're going to hire more police and expect that you're going to prevent crimes from happening in the first place. We cannot have people, particularly leaders, fall prey to the temptation of responding with the 1980s war on drug strategies that have been proven to have failed communities across the country and in District of Columbia in particular. So it's not just simply saying we need to hire more police. It's hiring the right amount of police officers, and that's one tool, right? It's not exclusively a panacea to combat crime in a vacuum. And so we have to make sure that we're partnering the accountability of having police officers who are policing communities in a thoughtful way. That means being smart with how they're engaging people, being unbiased in the way that they approach their jobs, being familiar with the communities within which they're policing, so that they can foster better police-community relations. I am not only a native Washingtonian, but I'm also a former prosecutor right across the line in Prince George's County, as well as a civil rights trial attorney with the United States Department of Justice, where I investigated police departments and worked with policing practices experts to really help communities figure out how to community police. And we've got to continue to make sure that we are holding MPD accountable to community police, understanding that what the police bring is a very important component to a broad criminal justice system that includes federal law enforcement partners that we have less authority over. But we also have to make sure that we're looking at our budget not only to augment our law enforcement officers and the things that Chief Conti's doing, but balancing that with investments in people, boosting spending in other ways to reduce crime, including hiring more violence interrupters and providing wraparound services such as the leadership academies that we're giving to our residents, particularly our youth, as well as providing more opportunities to find meaningful employment with a livable wage. I heard the segment earlier talking about the minimum wage going up in the District of Columbia, and we passed that bill several years ago in 2016. But we need people across the District of Columbia, young people and adults who are trapped in a cycle of poverty, to have some hope. And that means that those communities that we talked about that have been historically plagued by crime, we got to flood them with opportunities so that they can get jobs and that pay living wages, and they can take care of themselves and their families. And so it is not a binary choice about hiring more police, right? It is one component to a broader criminal justice strategy. And the NEAR Act is really a blueprint that, when fully implemented, is going to do a better job of reducing crime and making people across the District of Columbia feel safer in their neighborhoods.
Well, you gave a very comprehensive answer, and part of your answers talked about how to get guns off the streets. If you want to add a little bit more in terms of getting guns off the streets, you may do so. Do you want to add any more to that?
Well, I'll just say that, we are still recovering from a global pandemic here in the nation's capital. And you think about the ways that we address that global pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. It was a multifaceted, multi-agency, sort of full government onslaught of resources to identify, where we were seeing instances of the coronavirus and putting in place the resources to address it, including, widely distributing the vaccine. We have to treat violence, particularly gun violence, like an epidemic, because that's exactly what it is. It's permeated the fabric of American life for far too long, and the District of Columbia is no exception. And we have to make sure that we have a whole of government approach to addressing gun violence in the District of Columbia. And one of the ways to attack an epidemic is to limit the supply of guns on the street and hold those responsible for committing gun crimes accountable for their actions. You have to have the accountability piece in order for our system to work properly. And victims of gun crimes, those families that grieve constantly, we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the tragic death of Nia Courtney at the intersection of Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue and Malcolm X Avenue. Next week is going to be the 1-year anniversary. Imagine how her family feels, and the families of all the 200 plus people who lost their lives to homicide in the District of Columbia. We've got to have a whole of government approach. and treat gun violence like an epidemic, because that's precisely what it is.
Whole of government approach is kind of revolutionary, and one I know other cities should definitely replicate. Now, before you leave, we must ask, what is your takeaway from your candidacy for Attorney General?
Oh, I appreciate you asking that, James. For the viewers who are unfamiliar, we ran a really great campaign to become Attorney General, and we were doing really well. And frankly, the biggest challenges on the council that I've seen, I wanted to be able to tackle some of that as Attorney General. We talked about really justice, opportunity, and equity, and I think that theme still resonates with my candidacy as council member. And one of the things that I've learned, frankly, is that residents across the District of Columbia aren't focusing on what makes us different the way that some people in the media do. What I focus on the things that we have in common, and that's what they want to talk about. And so I learned what matters most to residents in every ward, 1 through 8 in the District of Columbia, regardless of what neighborhood they live in or zip code, is not what makes us different. Residents want to feel safe when they walk out of their front doors of their homes. They want to know that they have access to good schools in their neighborhoods. They want to know that the air that they breathe in their community is clean, and their leaders are focused on finding solutions to everyday challenges, particularly for those residents who have unmet needs. And so I'm going to continue to focus on what brings people together, our common interests, our shared goals, and running, what really is a positive race for at-large council member. And I have heard both as my campaign as Attorney General and also my campaign now for council member is people want to be inspired and have hope. And I'm bringing hope as somebody who is deeply rooted as a 4th-generation Washingtonian who saw challenges growing up in the District of Columbia, but was able to overcome them with the opportunity that I received to carry mail as a teenager. It really changed everything for me. It is what allowed me to save up money to go to Howard University and to graduate in the top 5% of my class and go on to become a lawyer and do all the things that I talked about earlier. And so people want to focus on what brings us together and how to tackle those really tough challenges that they're facing in their communities, like staying safe, as well as facing some of the housing challenges that we're seeing with affordability.
Well, thank you very much, Councilmember McDuffie, for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to speak with us. And we will be looking forward to the upcoming campaign in the fall. It will be the one to watch.
It will be the one to watch, and I'm asking all your viewers to check it out. We are running to make sure that everybody across the District of Columbia knows that they have a champion in Kenya McDuffie who has represented their interests for the last 10 years in the council and is looking to do it again for another term, because public service is in my DNA. It is my passion and my purpose to represent my hometown, to fight for the residents of the District of Columbia, particularly those who feel like they've been pushed to the margins. So thank you so much, James, and thank you to the Washington Informer. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a great conversation with Councilmember McDuffie. And now we will pivot to Frank Malone.
How are you, sir?
Hello, Frank Malone. You're no stranger to the Washington Informer, and I know you as an outstanding advocate on behalf of men and boys, and you're an outstanding Omega man, even though I kind of
thank you,
hesitate to admit that. But yeah, you're just an outstanding citizen. Now, Mr. Malone, briefly tell us about 100 Fathers Incorporated and what your organization is doing to combat gun violence in our communities.
Absolutely. We have a different take than the government does on how to solve these problems. The 100 Fathers has been around since 2010, and before that, working to transform the lives of fathers and men as valuable, visible, and viable members of our society that can make the change, can bring a safe community, a safe family, and safe schools. We've been proven by the research. As a matter of fact, in 2016, worldwide research points to Black fathers in America as some of the most coveted leaders in the world, not because they have the most money, not because we're living in a home with the mother, but because we love and care for our children the best way that we can. And so the Pew Research, the American Psychological Association understand our value and purpose as we look to transform our society as Black men of purpose, promise, and power. So, I also want to add that Kenny McDuffie, who was just on, and Calvin Rolock Sr. and Marion Barry are some people we work closely with. Calvin Rolock was one of my leaders, taught me leadership.
Yes.
Marion Barry helped to bring the Commission for Fathers, Men, and Boys to D.C.
Yes,
and Kenny McDuffie signed the papers for that legislation that we brought.
Well, dovetailing into that, why do you believe there's a rise in gun violence in our community?
I'm glad you asked that. And I want to give you some research, because the book that I studied from says, study to show thyself approved. There's a lot of people talking a lot of things, but unless we're talking about prevention, intervention, and innovation, we don't have a pure understanding of what has to be done. Let me give you something from the Pew Research on why this violence prevails. Taken from Black on Black Violence by Dr. Amos Wilson, the neutralization of the oppressed community's males and the destruction of their character, credibility, has overruled the territorial and institutional imperatives that exposes them to unrestricted, rapacious domination and exploitation. What am I saying? I'm saying some emasculated males holding guns under such circumstances may become unwilling allies to the vehicles of genocide, suicide in our community. Well, and what we're saying, go ahead. What we're saying is that we can heal this community.
Gotcha. One of the keys of healing and is the fact that you're going to take a fishing trip. Now, some of us like to hunt, but you're taking a fishing trip. Could you talk about why you're taking a fishing trip and what is the purpose of it?
The purpose of this trip is to take 20 unknowing young men who need fatherhood and mentoring on a trip to fish for fish. But while they're on this trip, we as the mentors and fathers will be fishing for their hearts, talking to them about manhood, character, values, respecting women, and what's important to a man in this society in the 21st century. We're excited about these possibilities.
Fantastic. Yes, sir. As we wind down, it's always great to talk to you, youth or adult. Tell us how people can become involved in 100 Fathers Incorporated. And do you have to be a man? Can women get involved?
We have some strong women, including my wife, that work with us. We're connected with the Black Women for Positive Change, the Omegas, the Alphas, the Kappas, the Black Greek Festival. We're connected with thousands of men, the Made Man, the DC Fatherhood Coalition, the Alliance of Concerned Men. We're all working together to rebuild the fabric of our community using the positive love of affirmation and leadership of fathers. We don't get that in the media. Unless we come on your show, we don't actually get a chance to talk about the great things that great dads do to protect and save our community. But we're doing that work in the schools, in the church, and in the street. And so we have a program that can change the lives of young men. They need to know through practice and through promise with men who have the experience that they can be healed They can be changed, and they've been given a new direction and purpose in life. So we want to heal our young men and give them an opportunity to talk to real men so that we can guide them down the path of success as fathers and men. And remember, a father is not going to let anybody hurt or destroy his children. And so we are a group that is so very important to this gun violence, because we're the leaders that got to step up, show up, and speak up for our women, families, and children. That's what the 100 Fathers is about. Catch us on www.100fathers.org, or you can call us at 202-361-0761. We're going to make the change in the schools, in the community, and in society. We already been on the street. We've been doing man the block. We've helped to train some of the violence interrupters. But you gotta have skills. It says in my book, study. Right. Show thyself approved. You can't give what you don't have. You can't teach what you don't know. The government does not have all the answers. It's got to come from the community, from the people who know each other, care about each other, love each other.
Okay. And thank you. Well, thank you very much for that information, Mr. Malone. Continue the great work that you're doing. Coming up now is Kiara Burrows, who will be talking to Jamila. Take it away, Jamila.
Welcome to the program, Kiara Burrows. It is a delight to have you.
Thank you for having me, Jamila. We're excited to be here.
So we are going to have a conversation that, unfortunately, I would argue more women need to be having. Many women experience fibroid issues, but Black women tend to have them more severely. And there are treatment disparities where we don't seem to be treated as well. About a quarter of Black women between or younger than the age of 35 suffer from fibroids. By the time a Black woman is 50, that number rises to about 80%. That's significant. But first of all, let's just define our terms and talk about the work that you do. So the White Dress Project, who are you? Y'all focus on fibroids in Black women. In what way?
Yes, so the White Dress Project was founded in 2014, and we're a 501c3 organization that focuses on raising global awareness about the uterine fibroid epidemic. And so we do that through research, advocacy, community, and education. So you'll see a lot of the programming and efforts that are done by our organization is to help raise that awareness and help to support people who are managing life with fibroids and to ultimately march towards finding a cure for the condition.
So this isn't just a national issue. It's an issue that women around the world face. I imagine you focus mostly on women here in the States, but can you talk about advocacy beyond?
Oh, yes. I know that we had an event in South Africa at one point. We have women who reach out to us from all over the continent, frankly, and women in the UK especially. We had a research survey that we did earlier this year. It's still going on now, and we're seeing a lot of responses, especially from women around the globe who are really benefiting from some of the programming and marketing that we've been doing to spread more awareness around this issue. So yes, you're right. This isn't just something that's happening at home. We're seeing women all over the globe deal with this. And as you mentioned earlier, it's particularly we're seeing a disparity with Black women who have a greater history of having this condition and also have, harsher outcomes coming out of treatments and a greater likelihood of having hysterectomy. So yes, our focus is women all around the world.
Let's talk about that disparity in treatment for just a moment. Overwhelmingly, the treatment options offered are hysterectomy and the like, surgery. There are some innovative kinds of techniques, uterine fibroid embolization and other techniques, some of which are, pioneered at Howard University. Um, I'm not an alum. I just read a lot. When we recognize that so often a woman will go to her doctor and the doctor will say, okay, well, let's surgically treat. Is that really the best standard of care? What are your thoughts around what women are offered and what they should be offered, rather?
Right. So at the White Dress Project, like, we always encourage our audience to be their own advocates. So before you're going into that doctor's office, take the time to research the condition as much as you can on your own, so that when you're going into the doctor's office, you can ask informed questions about your treatment. We have heard stories many times where women go in and the first thing they're being offered is a hysterectomy. And there are plenty of other treatment conditions. Like you said, there's uterine fibroid embolization, there's medication, there's myomectomies, there's other less invasive options that women may be able to explore depending on where they are in their fibroid journey. And that may allow them to preserve their fertility and maybe have a less invasive option to treat this. So yes, I encourage women, and we overall at the White Dress Project encourage women to be their own advocates. Go in, do your research, ask the right questions to your doctor. And if you feel that you're being dismissed, then it probably is in your best interest to seek another medical provider, because you do not want to end up in a situation that you didn't have to be in. So the first step is to make sure you're educated going in, so that you know what you're dealing with when you're talking to your doctor.
So often this is a woman's issue, a private issue, an issue that can bring shame, an issue that can bring embarrassment and discomfort, and not just experiencing it, but talking about it. How are you helping women to share their stories and connect in a way that allows them to not just be heard, but to help other women recognize that they're not alone, and perhaps their instinct of how their treatment options are being offered might not be the best for them?
Right. So you could easily visit like one of our social media pages on any day, and you'll see us sharing a patient story. We have women who write into us all the time, sharing their stories and how our content has helped them to feel more empowered to share their own stories. And some of our programming, like our empowerment brunches, like our White Dress Cares program, really allows our audience to get in front of people and share what their stories are. And it's really important that women share their stories, because once you share what you've been through, it really creates a platform for other people to come forward. And it really helps others to realize they're not alone in this journey. And that's what the white dress really symbolizes for our organization. We like it to symbolize hope. We know that there is a lot of embarrassment that can come with this condition, particularly when women are symptomatic. So we want them to know, one, they're not alone, and two, we're all in this together, and hoping that we can wear white again confidently someday. So yes, sharing stories are very important to us.
Okay, now, Kiara, you said brunch, which is one of my favorite words in the English language, and you mentioned other events. Make sure everyone knows how to get in on the brunch. Also, tell us about the fundraisers and how you use that connection and help women who are experiencing fibroids, and we who might know women who are experiencing fibroids. And if 80% of Black women by the age of 50 do, that's pretty much everyone I can count.
Right, and plenty are dealing with it that people don't even realize. So yes, our empowerment patient brunches, we started doing those last year, and we've really seen great success. We just had one last week in New Orleans during Essence Festival. We're having one this weekend in Boston, and we'll have more coming up this year. So please follow us online or join our mailing list. You can see the announcements about that. And our biggest event this month is our empowerment experience, and that's happening next week in DC on July 15th through the 17th. So during that time, we'll actually be having an empowered patient luncheon, but the concept will be similar, where we're bringing in healthcare providers, mental health experts, folks in government to come in and hear what patients are going through and answer questions about what they're doing to help advance research in the space. So yes, plenty of programs out there. The best way to find out more about them is to visit us on thewhitedressproject.org, and you'll see all of our programming listed there.
Absolutely. So, Kiara, I want to give you the last word here. In terms of brunching, we'll figure that out. We will. I'm sure there's a calendar where we can find out, because not everybody went to Essence Fest and got to brunch with you there. But what do we need to take away? What do we still need to be sharing that can help advance awareness, but also once people are aware, it's time to take some action. What do we want folks to know and do to better support and encourage better treatment options for uterine fibroids?
Yes. So the first thing, if you're suffering from uterine fibroids, share your story. Make sure that people know that you're dealing with this. I think that a lot of folks don't realize that other women and people in their lives are dealing with this issue because they're not talking about it. So that's the first step. We have to use our voices to talk about what we're going through so that people know about it. The second, in terms of advocacy, we have the Stephanie Tubbs Jones Act. Like, write into your congressman, encourage them to get involved to help to pass this act that will help to fund more education and research around uterine fibroids to help us march towards a cure. And then the last thing I'll say, and most importantly, consider getting involved with organizations like the White Dress Project, where you can help put on programming, actually share your story on a larger platform, and attend our events like our brunches, like our empowerment experience next week, to gain more information as you move forward in your fibroid journey, or support others who are on their journeys as well.
All right. Now I just want to point out, because the policy wonk in me loves that you brought up legislation, HR 2007, the Stephanie Tubbs Jones Uterine Fibroid Research and Education Act of 2021. It seeks to provide federal money with respect to education and research on uterine fibroids. And that is definitely something that everyone can call his, her, their congressperson, unless you live in DC and you don't have any about. So I want to thank you so much for being with us today, Kiara.
Thank you. Have a good day.
It has been a real delight. And I want to get my co-host today, James.
Well, thank you to Kiara, and outstanding presentation. And please read up on that. Well, I would like to bring in Kevin Hart. And there he is. Pastor Hart, how are you? How are you today?
Hello, James. How you doing? Thank you for having me on.
No problem. I've made my little remark about your name, so let's go to what we're here to talk about.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about Storefronts for Students, sir.
Storefront for Students is a program within our organization that was founded in 2014 called Pick Up the Pieces, Average Right Band. And it was created because I believe that you cannot complete a puzzle if you don't have all of the pieces. And our model, our vision, our mission is to partner people with proven programs to help them complete the puzzles of life. And Storefront for Students is just a fruit of that. And it is a program that we take students in the 9th through the 12th grade over the summer, and we do beautification projects in the U Street corridor in front of the storefronts. And in the morning, and then in the afternoon, we expose them to life skills and different things that in life, such as communication and etiquette on Monday, financial literacy and law on Tuesdays, personal health and nutrition on Wednesday. Thursday is entrepreneurial, business planning, college prep, vocational prep. And every Friday, this is what's huge. We take them on a field trip. And the first field trip every summer is always a Segway ride throughout our city, because many of our issues in our city is because we have no appreciation, because many of our children have not been exposed to this city. So we take them on a Segway tour, because you cannot impart what you have not yet been exposed to.
Well, how long have you been doing this?
6 years now. I believe we started 6 years ago. I started out it was just on my heart as a way of building relationship in the U Street corridor, which is, we know, is gentrified now, and the relationships are very well. Actually, there were not many relationships, and so one of the things that hurt me is that early on, this gentrification model, someone had to go for someone to come, and there was no relational component in the whole model, and so we found those that were new at odds with those that have always been here, especially our students coming home from school. And so what I did was, one day, one of the business owners was fighting with with a group of students, and I broke it up. The police came, and of course the police they immediately got a hold of the little students. And so what I realized was the only thing that they knew about the students was from their context, and the only thing the students knew about them was from their context. So they were skewed.
Well, that's a very interesting thing. It's these programs, these summer youth programs, are definitely something that is really needed. And I remember coming here a few years ago, and when I heard that all you had to do was just sign up to get a summer youth job program, I was flabbergasted, because back in my hometown, you had to get your butt out in the street and find a job. So
Right.
I think that those things are definitely. But how does this program deter violence among youth? And we definitely want to do that, as the council member just talked about. Employment helps. So I think that he is, and I think that we need to get these young people in jobs, and that is a key to deterring the violence. Do you agree with that?
Yes, it is. It is critical to not only get them in jobs, but get them in relationship first of all, with themselves. Relationship is the key to anything sustainable. And so what we do is we take students from all over the corridor, not just my set, but we take the whole city and we bring them together, and we nurture relationships with southeast, northeast, northwest, northeast, and they begin to create relationship. And in that relationship, there's a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and there is a protection model where if I see you, I see me.
Mm-hmm. But let me interrupt you in that sense. You say you take students from all over the city.
Right.
Now, some of these neighborhoods have beefs.
Exactly.
How do you deal with that?
First of all, we're not talking from a book, what we read. We're talking from what we lived and what we survived. So we're not talking above them. We're talking to them. And we understand, and we can sense and or discern the tension in the room. And we talk about it. We communicate about it. We get it out. It's not the elephant in the room. It's the air in the room. And so we inhale the reality, because the truth is, in order to change anything, you have to see it as it is. Mm-hmm. And then you have to be able to see it better. And then you must make it the way you see it. And a lot of times we deny, we're in a sense of denial about what really is the root of our issues and our violence. And we got to just be honest. Some of the things that have been created, we created as systemically, community-wise, and in our homes. And we got to see it like it is, see it better, and make it the way we see it.
That's fantastic. What type of volunteer services do you offer?
Oh man, anybody that has that is any type of area of professional, you want to come and mentor. We've been teaching them TV production with Hollywood East. Greg Amaker, we're taking them to productions. They're actually walking around with cameras that they've learned how to operate now while they're doing beautification, interviewing some of the storefronts that are partnered with us. So you can come down if you have something that you want to share your life and your experiences. You can go to our website at pickuppiece.com and go there, or you can call us at 202-265-9040.
Fantastic. And thank you for employing our youth. They definitely need it, not just the money, but the experience. It will definitely help them in the future in terms of employment and getting their lives together. Thank you for joining Win TV today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. A number of them today. I want to thank you for watching. Thank my co-host James Wright this afternoon, and I want to also give a shout out to our producer Chevry Lassiter as well. I think we've shared some good information for our audience. What do you think, James?
We definitely have, and thank you for that point, Jamila, because information, well, this is for another station, but information is power, and that is completely true. You know, Jamila, we live in a country where money is supposed to be power, but the real conduit of getting things done is information.
Indeed, indeed. So until next week when we get our fearless leader back, or we'll see.
And she will interview MPD Assistant Chief Morgan Kane.
Yes. So thank
And
you
that's
for
it.
watching until we're together again.
Enjoy your weekend.